Hi, so I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I thought for some reason now is as good as a time as any to talk about nihilism and responses to nihilism. So, nihilism in itself, or nihilism, how you want to pronounce it, where I come from, it's a bit different. Nihilism, how you say it, but essentially it's the recognition of life having no inherent meaning or purpose. That when it comes down to it, when we're, as honest intellectually and emotionally as we can be with ourselves, then we must admit that life has no inherent purpose in it. And this is something that I struggled a lot with when I was younger. A teenager, I was depressed because of it for like a decade, trying to find meaning. And my parents were religious, so growing up, I was also religious, I guess, and I always took it for granted that there is some kind of a purpose or meaning. I couldn't wrap my head around how possibly could all the adults and grown-ups just walk around doing what they do and suffering. I saw people suffering and suffering if they wouldn't have any meaning behind it, that at least at the end of the day they can go home and they can be like, this is all worth it, like this is all for some kind of cause, higher purpose, there is something. And I sort of took that notion for granted. I sort of thought that that's obvious in the world. And then I started learning a bit more about the world, and eventually one day I totally realized that there is no meaning like that. It's absurd. It's ridiculous, silly, and childish. Childish to try and imagine some kind of meaning in the world. So for a while I was quite depressed about it, and you either find some kind of solution to it or you don't. So either you just stay depressed and anxious and all of that, or you find some kind of way to deal with it. At the beginning, it's really tough to give up something like religion, but you get used to it. Human beings, we get used to stuff really easily. So basically, if you're an honest human being and if you're being real with yourself and the world, and you know how things work and you think about the world, then you have to admit that there is no purpose, there is no higher meaning, there is nothing. We're a bunch of atoms, you know, we're all 13.7 billion years old, which is quite remarkable to think about. And we're made of everything else that the universe is made of. We're made of the most common elements in the universe. And there's all these facts and things you can learn about existence, who we are and what we are. And the rest is up to you. Like, what do you make with that information? What is your conclusion? So, different kind of responses. One would be existentialism. And existentialism, well, there's also absurdism, and both of them absolutely agree that yes, they agree with the premise, the idea of nihilism, that there is no purpose, there is no real purpose in the world, there is no meaning. Existentialism, however, they have different approaches. So existentialism basically says that you can make your own meaning. You can think about it and you can create your own meaning, and that meaning is as legitimate and real of a reason as any reason ever could be in the universe. So you choose what is meaningful to you and what gives you meaning, and that's all you need, and people can be content and happy with that. If you were young like I was, and if you just sort of start to understand the idea of nihilism, then it seems kind of ridiculous to it's not satisfying to think that yes, I'll create my own meaning and that is good enough. It seems so absurd at first that creating your own meaning sounds silly. It's like making up some kind of a game, except the game is life. And then there is absurdism, and absurdism says that any meaning that we make up ourselves will fail. Any quest to find that meaning or construct that meaning will fail as well. In reality, there is nothing in this universe that has meaning or purpose. So embrace the absurdity is basically what absurdism says. That life is what it is. We're in this magnificent and bizarre, wonderful world, and we're dropped into it. None of us chose when we are born or who we are born as or where we are born or anything like that. We're just here, and it's up to us to make what we can out of it. I said a little while ago that, creating your own meaning seems kind of ridiculous and absurd. At first, it definitely does. When you first begin to sort of admit that there is no purpose, then it seems absurd and ridiculous to make up some kind of own meaning. But after a while, you realize that you either, at least for me, it was that way, you either realize that it is up to you to make that meaning, create that meaning. Either you live and you do what you can to enjoy life and feel good, or you kill yourself and you stop living. Because, choosing to live every moment that we are alive is a choice. There is always a choice. Everything is a choice. So, day to day, each day we decide to keep on living. That must mean that every day we are alive, or at least maybe wider periods of time by weeks or months, at least the total emotion during that time, day by day, at least there is more good in the day than bad. So you can say it's more worthwhile. It's worth it to stay alive, because in the average day there is more good than bad, and so it's worth living. And I think that's the most honest way that we could go about it. I don't think there's anything else we can do. We must just be honest and say that, we do the best to do the things that make us feel good, and try to be as good human beings as we can, and try to develop and grow, and that will be eventually good for the entire world. But it is an interesting feeling getting stuck in existential depression when there are these moments, and these moments just hit you. The literal absurdity of just how really absurd it is. And I wonder, if this is universal human pain, because I sort of imagined some people, going in their daily lives that are genuinely happy, like all the time. But I'm beginning to suspect that that might not be the case. I think suffering is a fundamental part of being human. Just the pain of being alive, just the pain of being self-aware of existence, of us having, it's equally wonderful as it is horrifying and terrible. We have disease and death and injustice, inequality, all this horrible nonsense that we have created, that we actually don't need, that is just some our time of being teenagers as humanity, and it just takes a little bit of time for us to grow up. I have no doubt maybe it will take a few decades, I hope, maybe centuries, depending on what technologies will allow us to advance quicker, culturally and technologically. So there's all this horrible stuff, but then also it is equally wonderful, just the miracle of us being alive. How many things in the universe need to be the way they are in order for us to be alive and to be capable of even having this, technology, and you being able to look at this video or any video, or be in your home where you have bed and clothes and water coming, clean water, and you have electricity, and we live in these civilizations, and we're a part of this superorganism called humanity. And nature, which is absolutely stunning, the fascinating complexity of nature, like there's a just incredible amount of different species and life, and how magnificent that is, and the universe we live in, what processes go on and what phenomena happen. It's truly wonderful, the universe we live in. But it's so funny that it's the result of this is a kind of cognitive dissonance, because for me it's both. It depends if I feel good or not. I either totally go the route of feeling like this is hopeless and pointless, and fully embracing the idea that we are just weak human beings, we are insignificant specks of dust, our bodies are weak, our minds are weak, we are just evolution's way to make babies, we are just hosts for DNA to make more of itself. There is no meaning other than that. Or you could come up with some kind of meaning saying that, the meaning of life is to process sunlight, or the meaning of life is to lower entropy, or whatever. But there is no meaning in that. But then when a good day comes, then I fully appreciate how beautiful nature and life is, and what a miracle it truly is that we are here. the more I at least learn about the world, the more unlikely it seems, the more rare I realize the Earth and our universe and planet are. How many things need to be in exactly the right place, enable for us to be alive and to be here and to think. And we take this all so much for granted, as if this was normal. But none of this is normal at all. It's incredible how most of human history we had thousands and thousands of years go by and no change in technology or culture, almost none. Very, very little. Changes happen so gradually that you barely noticed anything, even in 100 lifetimes. But now we expect innovation every few months, every year. We want new iPhones and computers and all of that. And this is something, this analogy, this what I'm expressing to you right now, this has been said so many times. At least I have heard it said so many times that it's kind of a cliche to hear it already, and this is a testament to how used to we get to everything, how for granted we take everything, even the fact that we take everything for granted and that we live in such an extraordinary time. We truly do live in an extraordinary time, and it's silly when people think that any of this is normal. So nihilism, is the truth if you're a real human being and if you're not delusional. Everyone is delusional in some ways, but if you're not like deluded, to the point of being religious, excuse me, nothing wrong with being religious, and perfectly great people being religious, and you believe whatever you want to believe, but we have to admit that there is no point, there is no meaning, and just be honest about it. And then when you accept it, then that gives you a tremendous amount of freedom of just being like, this is how the world is, so what do I do about it? How do I feel about it? What do I do with this information? At the end of the day, I think the most important thing is that we do the best we can to be happy and to feel fulfilled. And there is no meaning, there is no moral or ethics or purpose or anything that is universal, but there is something about being human and things that are good. We feel in our hearts that, like, if things should be different, our world definitely has so many parts of it that should be different, and there's so much horrible stuff going on. But I think, yeah, just making this life and world more the one that you want to be in and live, and just enjoy more the moment. It's a choice being alive. It's our choice, and if you choose to be alive, then you might as well live a good life and make something interesting and enjoyable out of it. So these are just my 2 cents as some thoughts. So hope there was something interesting here for you. Just a rant. But thanks so much for watching, and all the best. Take care.